Hi, my name is Zelda.
안녕하세요. 저는 자승입니다. 반갑습니다.
こんにちは、Madeline と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。
And we are 3 WoUHE Board members who took the spontaneous decision to travel abroad and do some cool esports stuff while we were there.
Yay!
Yay!
I do feel like you guys have because I went to study abroad and then I worked at the same time. Like I did esports stuff like kind of on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys like actually went with the purpose of like pure esports. So I think it's better if you guys like talk first or like have your because you had such a like interesting experience and I think a more like esportsy kind of experience, whereas mine is very like sporadic.
Technically, I was there for the main purpose of study abroad too.
Oh yeah. Yonsei?
Yes, Yonsei. So the way it worked was I was still in like the works of working out like which school I was going to choose, and like even if I wanted to choose Korea as this country I wanted to go to study abroad. After that got confirmed and I got like placed into Yonsei, that's when the whole thing with T1 started happening, where
Right.
it just was like we're super lucky to have Joe Marsh, the CEO of T1, like have a weird connection with
Like
you.
kind of vouch for us.
He reached out to us using his own time and like offering to like give talks to the university, give talks in Sky's class, and it just so happened where somebody in the UHE program was going to study abroad for a semester in Korea. So, you know, like, can we do this? Can we do this? Okay, I guess we can. So that's kind of how it worked out. And balancing that with school was basically what my about half a year in Korea was like.
Because when I think about your experience in Korea, I think of it as work. I kind of forget that you were in school because I felt like your job was you had like pretty intense hours, and I don't know how much you can talk about the internship. I feel like it was pretty like it was a good chunk of your time that you were spent like that you spent there, that you went into the office and stuff like that, which is super cool.
Pretty much during the school semester, it was split half-half. I was lucky to be able to coordinate my school courses to where like it was basically within 2 weekdays I would go physically to the campus, and then I had an async class or like a digital like Zoom only class that I could go to, and then the 3 other days of the week I would dedicate to T1. And kind of like a cool thing that they do at T1 is instead of having like a 9 to 5, they make it like an 11 to 7. That way like it skips the rush hour. I don't know if Genji was like that too.
We worked super late. Yeah, like we started like 10:30.
It's such a gamer thing to do.
No, it's really
Yeah.
it's just like a Korea thing too, though. Because
Oh, really?
everybody wakes up later, and like the nightlife too.
And then it also works well with like LCK schedule and like VCT schedule too. So it like
Oh, yeah.
it really works out well. And I would say like I enjoyed waking up later, and like I didn't mind staying later either.
Yeah.
So it's like super cool. Like I never experienced like office hours normalized like that. So like that on top of like everything else was just like a cool cultural experience to see what like the work was like in Korea.
We all had like really unique experiences, and I think we were kind of the same where we were doing school and also kind of esportsy things. But you,
I was just having fun.
you were like
dedicated.
that was it, like intense for what? How long?
It's like a month.
Oh my gosh.
And I got to see like projects through more because we did marketing. So we did like a lot of ads, and then a lot of like Discord stuff and stuff with like their like global academy.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, you guys got to be there like after the new facility was built, right? Because
Yeah.
I remember passing by that and that was still like all under construction. But then after it was built, I would walk down the street to get to T1, and like I saw people with Genji jerseys just like walking past me, right?
Yeah.
That was like a
I experienced that as well, and it was super because even though I'm coming from esports in Japan, but I went to Korea for that week, and then I visited Genji and T1, and both times I like walked by the facilities, and it's so awkward because you like see the T1 players, you're going to Genji, and then I saw the Genji players, and then I was going to T1. I was like, whoa. And the rivalries are so intense. I didn't expect that.
I remember we met up with Jazmin to get coffee at a coffee shop, and Engage and I were walking back, and then we brought coffee cups in, and then
I did not know this. What?
yeah, we probably shouldn't have, but like Arena was like, traitor.
Oh my god.
Like kind of joking, but like
Yeah.
it's just like a funny.
Yeah, it's like a straight up cafe basically.
And I saw they have the like computers, because it's like the T1 facility, and then right next to it is like the academy.
Yeah.
And then in between is this like cafe that open to the public,
Mhm.
and so there's a lot of people there when I went.
Yeah, basically serves the purpose of like hosting those LAN events where people can come and watch, like being at the T1 facility. But it also like serves as a kind of place for fans to congregate, which is what they do with their PC bongs too that they have in like Hongdae, where it's kind of like a benefit to T1 in the long run because like fans almost facilitate the events themselves, where like T1 doesn't even really have to like do anything except like monitor and make sure it's like everything up to code, nothing like sus is going on or anything. And like the fans themselves will like host these like parties to celebrate like player anniversaries, player birthdays. People will like line up just for those types of events.
God.
Kind of cool.
I know. And have you seen like esports players' birthdays being like
Yeah.
on the monitors
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
train stations?
It's pretty
No.
cool. They do that.
I
with,
didn't see
K-pop
that.
stars
They
and
do that, yeah, with the
I'm not
idols. and
surprised
stuff.
about idols,
Yeah.
but like, I feel like in there, like
Mhm.
esports players become idols as well. It's very similar,
Pretty
It's
much.
pretty
and I was
cool,
surprised by that.
actually. Because I feel like it's a very niche community here, at least in the US. But then like,
It's not the same culture.
Yeah.
I thought it would kind of be kind of similar, but
If I think about the different ways it hits me where like more of the general public in Korea is just aware of esports, like I think of like those signs in the subways, those different collabs that they do where it's like I would walk by KT, which is like one of the telecom companies along with SKT
Yeah.
that's really popular in Korea, and it was just like the KT store in I think Hongdae was decked out with like the LCK team merchandise, like just their own corner of that. Like think of it like a AT&T store or something. Like
That's crazy.
like just the corner of your telecom service company has like this esports dedicated like
yeah.
shelves full of merchandise and like people watching like the best highlights of the team like on a tiny screen in the sides. It's
It's
just
so different.
it's so
different.
different.
I think that's one of the like main topics that we'll probably talk more about today is the fact that like esports in America, esports in Japan, and esports in Korea all operate completely differently. And they all have different vibes and they all focus on different things, and it's so jarring to go from one to the other because then you're like, what is happening here? But Korea, it definitely is like feels like one of the more passionate places, especially with fans.
Like we would always walk into like restaurants, like Korean barbecue. Like I remember the first night we were eating, we went to like a Korean barbecue place, and then we walked in. There's just guys, just like the wait staff is just watching like league games on
A
their
league
phone.
game?
And, like,
Yeah, or even I think for me, like when I went to Lowell Park, which is the arena that Riot built in Korea just for a league, and so it's really decked out. And seeing the amount of women lined up for the T1 game was crazy. Like, because I was watching the DK game, so T1 was like the next game, and obviously we got kicked out. They were all lined up waiting, and I was like, I've never seen this anywhere for esports. Like, it was such a crazy experience, and I was like, whoa. And yeah, way more women than I normally associate, especially in America, fans being more male, and that kind of being how it is. And even in Japan, it also felt like there were more male fans, but in Korea it was like there's a lot of women here.
That's like almost the defining like factor in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to monetizing esports in Korea.
especially.
I don't know if Genji kind of talked about the same thing, but like as for T1, I don't know if I can say the exact numbers, but a very high percentage of like their paying membership was female instead of male.
What does membership mean?
So it's like a fan loyalty program.
Cool.
They operate on B Stage, which I think Genji also moved to recently.
Do you get like
It's
discounts for stuff,
certain things, I think, but it's more
or like priority for?
It's like a separate line of merchandise just for members. So
Special like.
you also get like special dibs on like jerseys and stuff that comes out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they also have like just another line of more personalized merchandise that like I will say kind of caters more towards like women's tastes in like what they want. Kind of like phone cases with like player sketches on it, photo cards, the type of thing. And they get access to behind the scenes videos, like little vlogs they make on their phones and stuff.
Oh my god.
It's
Super cute.
literally idol culture. Like that's kind of what I came to realize. And part of that is, I would say, like, good because it is such a strong buying force, especially in Korea. But the other side of things is that, like, if you do want to expand your market, that was one of the tasks and projects like I was kind of given during my internship, is like, how can they start to expand beyond their current market, which is mostly female Koreans? Like, how do you get more guys to be interested that aren't Korean, like that are international? Right now, the current like content offerings are really niche, like super appealing to a certain group of people, and like almost really makes other groups of people want to avoid it because
because
idol
they're
culture is
associated
very
with
polarizing.
that. And I think it's really good to like take advantage of that, because obviously you want a sustaining business, but I think the issue that most esports organizations are facing is how to make more money and how to become more sufficient, or sorry, what's a word?
Like
self-sustaining, because most of them are losing money, and that's like a fact, and that's public knowledge. And so how can they stop marketing to like Pepe? How can they stop marketing towards just one specific audience? And it kind of ends up with the same thing in America as well. Like, I feel like most things are kind of catered towards the male audience a little more, and it's also like harder to get stuff. Like, at least in Korea, it's like, oh, they have like pop-up shops, or they have like T1 has their own store, which is really cool. But like in America, it's like, I don't know what team has like an actual like, you'd have to be in LA. It would have to be like the championships, or like, you know, an event time. And and mostly online. And then like, how do you get fans for a team like that when it's all just like online? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they do consider, like, if they do even open a shop though, like how many people would come. I'm gonna just say it, Korean fans are crazy in the best and worst ways. So
it's intense.
People will know like the trucking incident with T1, they'll do that, but they'll also like sell out any merch line that T1 develops and releases. It's the good and bad that you have to take with having a fan base that you're kind of enabling kind of
what's the word?
Good and
like,
bad behaviors in a way.
What's the word when you have like too close of a relationship with
Parasocial.
Parasocial relationship. I feel like it kind of goes onto that line. Obviously, it's just the way that their society has kind of operated, and there's a lot of reasons it's gotten to that point, but it is really interesting. I think it helps out esports more as like an entertainment industry, but it also has like the negative sides of like stan culture and idol culture. So
for sure.
I'm sure that was super experiencing or interesting to like experience firsthand and like witness that.
I'm so sad I did not get to witness a truck in person though while I was there.
Do you know what trucking means? What does trucking mean?
It's like this notorious event where I forget when it started, not more than several years ago, but T1 was performing pretty badly, and fans were like protesting either like the coach or just like the performance in general.
Oh, no.
And in Korea you can rent these trucks with like huge LED screens.
Oh no.
And then like have a message and like drive around that general area for like a certain fee. And like it's not cheap, but multiple fans who are like angry about the same thing just get together and like rent out the truck. And it's like since then it's happened multiple times, and sometimes it's like conspiracies. Oh, the person who sent out this truck was Chinese because the Korean on it is like not perfect. And like maybe it's like a fake sort of, you want to like stir up drama and stuff, even though like,
oh my gosh,
you're not like super mad, like you want to make other fans mad, so you send a truck. There's also this weird thing where they set out funeral flowers in front of the building because it's like, oh my god, my team is performing so bad, my team died, something like that.
God.
Like,
wait, that's crazy.
So intense.
There's layers, and I don't know if I'm representing them all right, but Korea, I think, it's just another culture thing where they have like a very strong like protesting culture. I don't know if you
I've seen it.
Witnessed,
even
like,
when I was there for just a week, it was
there.
like the whole time there was different protests happening, and it was really interesting to see. It's very organized.
Yeah, like they'll make circles at like train stations, they'll sing karaoke, or I guess they'll do like
police are always
and
involved
stuff.
in like a good way as well. Like it's very just like, that's just how things are. That's how it felt for me. And I think like all of our experiences are such a like small window into the general like time in these places of like living there, growing up there. And that is kind of a disclaimer, because I feel like even though we both were in Japan and Korea for quite a few months, it's like I don't think we'll ever truly understand and like really like get the culture, especially as like foreigners. Having opinions from like our little window is kind of fun to talk about, because it is very like we're taking it as this is all new, this is all different, and like it's really cool to experience, but still just definitely hard to get used to. How did you find adapting to Korea?
To Korea, like in general, or like
Yeah,
it was so strange.
busy.
Yeah, I was busy, but also like I didn't really know very much Korean going into it. So like it was very much like, oh, I like hate not being able to like order stuff like at all. Like I can't even like walk into a restaurant and tell them how many people like are in my party. Like I just like hold the numbers and like, oh, I don't like them. So it was like kind of a struggle.
The cities are super foreigner accommodating.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We got to check out like the Hall of Fame. I don't know if you got to
Yeah.
go while you were
I
there.
didn't go.
It was also crazy the amount of people that were there. Because we went like the first weekend, I think.
Oh my god. Yeah,
so
that
the
makes
lines
sense.
are crazy. Like they were super long. But I was like, I've never seen like this. Like I don't know, the demand for it is crazy. Like it's just like an exhibit of like all faker stuff, but it's just like the amount of people there. Like lines were like zigzagging back and forth, like outside the building. We probably stood in line for like an hour and a half just to like get in. Like the whole inside was like more lines. Like, this many people come just like take pictures.
I'm so glad you were able to experience that, because I think the window was only 2 weeks or 3 maybe.
Oh, really? Wow.
Super sure.
I do think it's funny because when I think of Hall of Fame, I think of like that person's dead, or like they're retired. This guy is still playing League.
Yeah.
He's still on the T1 team.
That was a controversy.
Really?
Because people said, okay, so it's understandable that they want to commemorate a player that's still playing because it's more relevant, I guess, right? But what people complain about was, they also want to push it while he's still an active player because they're having like the skins being sold along with it.
$500 skin.
And like even Baker was surprised by it. People were saying like,
oh really?
He didn't use his
and he didn't use his
either,
skin. Like, well, that's Baker. But you can see why people might have been mad, because like it's celebrating him, but like it feels like a ploy just to sell the skin at points, and only a small percentage of the profits actually went to Faker too. And T1.
Yeah, I think that's an issue in esports in general, where a lot of things right now feel kind of like money grabby, because people just want the industry to survive. And of course, like businesses are built on money and they're kept going by money. But it does suck when esports is a very like personal kind of creative thing that we're all very invested in as like passion kind of project, or not passion project, but just something that we like a lot, that we're actually like interested in, that makes us feel creative, that we can be involved in. That's cool. And when money gets involved like that, it becomes kind of icky. Like you're like, oh, like this is like the cool thing I do. Like I don't want it to just be about like business, even if it is something that is like vital for the company to survive. But then if T1 doesn't get much money from it, I'm like,
because people want to buy it to support Faker.
so you'd think the money would go directly.
Yeah,
But that might be a little too
I know, like
political.
a small percentage, but a small percentage of 500 is like, and people still bought it. Like, I think we could tally a number of players in our program that probably bought the full package skin. So
Like I definitely know people that have.
maybe the Western reaction was worse, but like the Asian reaction, like I don't think they thought much of it actually, because they're used to the whole gacha system of like luxury items, like you buy it for a high price because it's like a limited commodity, it's special edition, right? And like it's almost like the fact that people don't want to buy it makes it more special. Yeah, like oh my god, like I have this thing that you
can't get.
Yes,
that kind of thing. It's funny because I don't think any of that is really in Japan, because unfortunately, like a lot of the Japan teams, if we're talking about esports that we're talking about, like League of Legends and Valorant and like all of the like top kind of FPS or what does League classify as?
MOBA.
MOBA? Those kind of games aren't as popular in Japan, and there are games that the teams are doing well in Japan. I want to clarify. But when it comes to Valorant and League of Legends, they're not doing great. And as a supporter of Zelda, the Valorant team in Japan, who they also have good teams in other games, but they did not make it. I don't think they even made it to Shanghai or Spain. So it's kind of disappointing. And I think because the teams don't perform as well, there's less of this kind of like fan culture behind it. And of course, Japan functions in a different way than Korea, but I think there is some kind of fan culture in Japan, like people interested in a lot of like J-pop and kind of like different singers, or there is like the ability to do that. But because teams have not really performed that well, I think it's harder for them to get behind it. Unlike like T1, who's been super oh my god, I can't speak. Successful in like what they started out in StarCraft, I think. History. And then they also obviously did really well in League. They built their like momentum up and they did so well and got all their fans in. But I don't think Japan has had that. The government support in Korea definitely.
Oh yeah.
Definitely helps.
Like Korea has its own like coalition or like government supported like body just governing esports stuff.
Yeah.
Is that KESPA?
I think it's KESPA. Korean Esports.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Association.
And you can argue like whether that's always for the best or not when the government meddles with stuff, but they see it as like a point of national pride, something worth investing time and money into. I think when T1 won Worlds, like the president sent out a letter congratulating them and stuff, and just like the amount of like big sponsors supporting esports and like investing into esports.
Can you imagine Biden sending out?
No.
Sorry, I just had that thought.
If NA won
Kamala, maybe
Worlds,
they would be like esports. Like, what's that?
we're still in the growing stages of things, but I think
NA is weird.
Yeah,
because we have had a lot of success, and when it comes to like top earnings in esports orgs and stuff like that, the USA is pretty up there. But somehow it's different. Somehow it's still not the same as like Korea, or it hasn't been like marketed and like organized in the same way. So there's less of a unification of what esports is, especially in collegiate, as we feel.
One thing that was really interesting with Gen G is they focus a lot of their time into like their academy programs. They do like it's like a school almost, like kind of like a GED program, but they like just like teach like actual classes, and they make a lot of money through that, and that's like how they're sustainable. So it's super interesting to learn like their thoughts versus like the Westerners and how they view games, because a lot of like older people like they view games like, oh, it's a waste of time. We're learning about like their program in Korea, like they view as like, oh, it's like you're taking piano lessons, like you're paying for coaching. They're willing to pay money for their kids to take lessons in like video games. So it's super interesting.
I think that's something that I've been really advocating for in esports, especially working for our collegiate program, is that education is the best way to create a more sustainable business. Because right now a lot of the esports companies are pulling all this money into teams and like trying to make it sustainable, but a lot of them are failing or losing money. And I think focusing on education, me personally, I think, is like the best way to create a better system, because kids are interested in it, and if we are able to educate parents better, I think they would also be interested in it. That was one of the really interesting things about Japan, is that there are barely any collegiate esports, but there's a lot of high school and kind of like lower education esports, like gaming clubs and there are some esports classes and gaming classes. There's an initiative to teach code through like Minecraft. There's all of these different things that are being implemented across the entire country in a very different way. Same with elderly people, implementing games in helping their motor skills and memory and like focus, being able to use hand-eye coordination, all of that kind of stuff to help them as they age. It was also some really interesting studies that I learned about during my time like researching esports in Japan.
That's so interesting, because when we think of demographics for ways you can like integrate esports with not just like, oh, you want to become a pro, but like for maybe like dexterity issues and stuff, like I almost never hear about like really making an effort to include like elderly people in it. But like in one of my business classes, I was trying to like compare e-commerce services actually, and what I found was like Rakuten in Japan. They have this whole loyalty program that helps like elderly people like get steps throughout the day, like kind of like Pokemon Go, where they would like stop at certain areas that are marked as like, oh, point designation, and like you can like rack up like coins or whatever in the app. You can sign up through Rakuten too if you're old and you don't know how to use technology. Like,
Fair enough.
you know, it's not bad, and they want to learn, and they're offering like lessons to teach those elderly people about like how they can use their phones and computers. That's something I think Japan is really on top of.
Yeah,
actually.
but you know why? Because there's too many elderly people.
Yep.
Because the birth rate is super low. It's very concerning for everyone. Because I think when we talk about like sustainable esports, it really has to cover like all ground. I always compare esports to sports, like obviously, but like also because sports have just existed and already created such a good functioning way of like making money and sustaining itself. And of course it doesn't have issues with like IP and stuff like that, but when it comes to sports, like elderly people still play sports, and like older people play sports, middle-aged people play sports, younger kids play sports. Like it's all ages, and it's marketed towards all ages. Like it's in schools. I'm pretty sure elderly homes still have like certain games that they play. It might not be physically demanding, but they still want elderly people to be active, and there are ways you can use sports to do that. I don't know, I see people playing tennis all the time, like near my house. It's like all stuff like that is like you can still play games throughout your entire life, and it can help people, not just you're addicted to the game.
It's really cool because if they're not like capable of like moving around as much, they can still like
Right,
work
you would
their
think,
cognitive like skills and
like it's like a natural step for, instead of like, oh, they can't maybe move as well anymore, to like play those sports like you were saying, like
they have another way to like train and
keep their
keep
mind
them
active,
yeah.
like not just do crossword like every morning.
Something also interesting in Japan and actually in Hawaii as well is more focusing on disabled people and gaming and helping things be more accessible for them, but seeing how they can enjoy games and get something out of it and, you know, have a good time, but also be able to learn things. And I think that's really cool because it really can cater to like anyone.
When I went to not the Hall of Legends Faker thing, but the Esports Hall of Fame, that's a little exhibition floor, like in this tall building run by KESPA. They had this section just highlighting disabled players, actually.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I'm like, I was...
Because sometimes you don't even know if players are disabled. Like, you could just not know. And finding out that someone has, like, especially someone that might have the same disability, and knowing that, like, a player did that, or, like, they had something that you can relate with is, like, so cool to me.
I was, like, really surprised to see that. Yeah. Not to say Korea isn't getting better, but there is, like, the stigma that people are aware of about, like, disabled people, like how they treat mental illness and stuff like that. Like seeing that in the Hall of Fame shows like at least, okay, like they do acknowledge it to some respect. That doesn't mean like everybody acknowledges it. That's like a whole nother thing they have to think about to get like the general public on board. It kind of like did make me feel happy, like just seeing that if you're gonna commemorate players, like they do recognize those groups of players as well, because of the hardships that they went through and the successes they were able to still have in spite of it.
No, definitely. I had a question for you. I don't know, I'm really coming from it from like the perspective of like we send these students out from WoUHE to go to Genji, and it's kind of a like, oh, you can see what it's like to work in an esports organization, feel it out. Do you think that's something you would want to do in the future?
I don't know, because I got my undergrad, I came back for computer science. Like I was kind of like in mind, it's like, oh, I want to do like software development, like UX stuff, possibly. And then I started like helping out and getting more involved.
And then
you
got trapped in
And then now I'm here, and I like love it. So I'm like, I'm very open to kind of like anything. Like if I could get a job in esports, I feel like it would be really cool. But the one like concerning thing is about like the stability of it. That is scary, especially like in NA like organizations. It's
anywhere.
Very much like honestly anywhere. But working at Genji was really cool because it's still like kind of considered a startup. You do so much different stuff.
There's not enough workers ever in any esports organization, in any place. There always is like, you have to take on more jobs, or you have to like think for more than one person.
You just have to like kind of like just like take things on yourself and be like very like active, like seeking out like opportunities to like continue to grow. And I feel like it's really cool because I can never make up my mind about like stuff that I want to do, but like working at like a startup, you kind of just do everything.
Yeah, and you can try things out.
Yeah, so it's like kind of cool. Like I like not being bored all the time doing the same stuff. like in architecture, I remember just sitting on a screen drawing lines on a computer for like months, working on drawings. Like I can't do this all the time. So it was really cool working at Genji. I like got to like one day we were just like taking a bunch of like pictures for like social stuff, so, like planning, like just like constantly doing different stuff like every hour of every day.
Yeah.
So, like, oh, I kind of
It's
really like
good
that.
for your brain.
Yeah. So I could see myself working in it if I have the opportunity to.
I would say, well, the plus side of my time is like I did get more exposure and observation time over a long period.
Yeah.
I would say the main difference with my internship versus yours would be like you were able to be more engaged with projects, like they needed your help for things. I think on my end, I was super grateful like being able to like shadow people, observe what was going on. It was also the case of everyone was so busy and in the hustle and bustle where understandably so, but like it was kind of hard to like slot me in
We
to
kinda had that
anything
as well. Yeah.
where it's like
It's like,
Where you didn't
I'm
feel
here
super
to help,
helpful.
but yeah.
I think a lot of times we're like waiting for like feedback on a project to like hear back on things, like see whether they're approved. So we would always just like have to start working on something else. Like try to find other things to work on, which was cool. But yeah, I feel like everybody's so busy doing everything.
Like intern in any company is just like
I saw it with like all of their employees though as well. Like
Oh, really?
everybody would stay super late at night. We would go out to eat dinner and like all of the people we would eat with, all the Genji employees would be like, oh, we have to go back to the office and like work after dinner. Like yeah, it was just like a normal thing. Just like everybody always working.
I've done research in Japan already, and then I actually made quite a few connections in Japan that I was able to visit and over my time like while in Japan, studying abroad like a second time being there. And so I'm quite different from your guys' experiences because I'm still independent. I've been working for WoUHE that whole time, and like my job was still with WoUHE, so I wasn't like going to intern at a different place. I wasn't experiencing an esports company, which is quite hard to do in Japan because there's not that many of them. And I do think it is growing, and that's really cool, but it's definitely not at the point where like I'm not sure if I would get a job working in esports in Japan. I think I would love to, and I've loved my time like working here at WoUHE for the past like 3 years now. But what's cool is that I feel like the skills I've gained from this job and from my time in esports are able to cross over to a lot of different things. And that I think we should take advantage of more to getting more people into esports, because it's not like, oh, you need like if you work in esports or if you do this specific thing, you can't do anything else and none of your skills will cross over. Because it really is like what my job is very like project management, communications, and that is crucial to almost every single company on this planet and any organization that is able to be put in a lot of different kind of jobs, which is really cool. And I think we should try and like market esports more catered towards like you should come here to learn these skills. Doesn't mean you are locked into an esports contract and you're not going to find a job. Like you can find a job with these skills.
It's like a sharp contrast, I think, because for the player side of things, it's like the all or nothing, because
Go
maybe
pro. or nothing.
Sometimes you'll get lucky if you're like a CS player and then like Valorant comes out, you can like jump over because it's like FPSs are similar for the most part.
And then CS2 comes out.
Yeah.
And then
like,
you jump back.
Okay, I'm headed out of here. But for like the behind the scenes business production side of things, it is really like they want people from all walks of life, because at the end of the day it's an entertainment business and they need like so many different kinds of people. That's why it's like the topic, I think, of esports degree, esports certificate. It's like a debated thing because it's like getting a degree in basketball or getting a degree in football. Like you would not do that. You would get a degree in like production or like journalism.
Well, because everyone in this program is like all kinds of different majors, and they're all helping out with the esports program or they're playing for it. I think when you worked at T1, I don't know if you talked to a lot of different people, but did you notice that some people had the same kind of backgrounds before they got into esports, or were there any consistencies in like what jobs they had before or what majors they had before?
That was like one of the best things, I think, was like just talking to people and learning about their history.
Yeah.
You were saying, I think esports is like a collection of skills. That's why like I think esports classes are cool to learn about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but like really like all these people have like so many different skill sets from things that aren't necessarily tied to their specific role, but then like Zell was saying, like you end up doing so many different things anyway, it comes into play. Some people, they were like really all or nothing wanting to get into esports, but their management and skill set was really like partnerships, management, and that sort of thing. And they were able to like build a portfolio of doing those that maybe not even like directly esports related things before coming to work at an organization like T1. Someone I knew who was like media production major, but she also joined the partnerships department. Because of her background, she was able to redesign decks to give to the partners.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Violet. I don't know if you'll watch this, but she's also like a super fan of T1. Like this won't always be the case where
Big fans will
big fans will get jobs and that serves as an asset, but like in some ways it can be because her knowledge of the fandom probably plays into like what she knows fans would want and how she can tie that in with communicating what T1's audience needs versus what the sponsor thinks T1's audience wants, and that sort of thing. Even though, like, yeah, again, her background is, like, an arts major from an arts school, basically. So impressed by, like, the amount of people that do, like, come from everywhere, basically. I would say maybe Korean orgs, for the most part, do have strong fandom within all of their staff. So it does help to, like, not be like totally ignorant of the industry, I guess, if you do want to get into it. But it's not just a case of like, I like T1, I want to go into esports. Like, you want to have things you can show that are like something that could be of an asset to them that isn't just like, I know the esport. It's just like everything around running a business that serves a purpose and like aiding your knowledge of esports and like multiplying it in a way.
No, exactly. What about your time at Gen Z? Did you
Like,
talk
with
to
other-
anyone?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them weren't super into, like, there's a handful of people who obviously, like, are super into esports, like, love the teams. A lot of them as well kind of just come from, like, different backgrounds. Like, obviously, we did marketing stuff, so, like, I know a lot of people who study marketing. And there's a couple people who, like, got, I think, one of our mentors, she majored in like psychology. She like business. She ended up doing a lot of the business stuff for Gen G. Kind of everything, and it's kind of cool because you can see their skill sets and how they apply.
I think any of our students that like tell me that they want to work in esports or they really want to like really go for that only, I'm always like, just keep it open. Because most people that I've talked to that work in the industry do have a ton of experience working for different companies beforehand. Some of them get lucky and go straight into esports, but unfortunately most of the time that's not the case. And like we're in a time right now where it is harder to get esports jobs. A lot of people have gotten laid off in the past few years, and that means the market is way more like harder to get into. There's a lot of good people looking for jobs at the same time. College students who have just graduated are, so it is harder to get in. But I think there's a difference between like, you don't have to give up your dreams just because like you can't go directly there or because you can't get the perfect job that you want immediately, and like being able to be versatile and like just doing things that somewhat interest you that you can find, and then still having this goal of like, okay, I want to get to esports eventually, or I want to stay in tech, will get you there. And I think is a way more like beneficial and like well-rounded way to get into the industry.
So one of the other prompts that's kind of an offshoot from the roles I was thinking about in the industry is specifically women in the industry, especially trying to put it in like an Asian lens. What roles have you seen women who work in esports in Asia fulfill? And like maybe similarities to West or differences from the West? Shed some light on that, because there are differences and different things that women do face, like getting into esports versus what maybe others may face?
At Gen G, honestly, there was quite a lot of women who held like higher positions, which was really cool to see. We had to like speak to them, kind of interact with them pretty often, but it was very like male dominated still. I don't know if that was your experience as well.
In Japan, most of the companies, like, I was surprised it was pretty even. It always felt like there was a lot of women working. From just my observation, there tends to be, like, the men are always in the top CEO kind of positions, like, on top of the company. But there always feels like there's an even amount of workers, being male or female, underneath them. And same, like, when I went to Valorant Masters last year, there was, like, way more women like working that event and like also just like in the crowd and stuff like that. Like I always feel like esports is quite evenly split in Japan, but that's just been from my experiences.
I would say T1 sounds the same to what Gen G was like then, because from what I known and like being able to like interact with those higher ups too, surprisingly I think there's like a hierarchy in T1, but I think they try to kind of, the higher up C-suite people try to involve themselves with like the lower level staff.
Yeah,
Is that right to say?
They're not just like, oh, I'm looking down at you, like you're down there. Like they still want to interact with people and like.
And I don't know if that's like the global sort of influence, because I know T1 and Gen G are both kind of
international,
more internationally aligned, maybe more so than other Korean organizations or businesses, or it just might be like the personal philosophies of like the people in those roles. But yeah, I would say the dudes doing the thing at the top, and then not too far down below them though, there are like women in those like high managerial positions,
like senior kind of roles.
Yeah, again, bad to say, so I was surprised that it was like a good split of people actually.
I mean, I'm surprised too. Like, my experience working in collegiate esports has been entirely male dominated. I'm working with only men. Like, it's rare for me to have a woman as one of our team leads. It's rare for me to work directly with a lot of women, and very noticeable. So I think that's something that when I went to Japan and I see so many women in kind of like more senior positions, or like a pretty even split when I toured some of the companies and stuff like that, that is very noticeable.
What about the production side of things, like on the camera talent? I would say it's another controversial topic, because you don't want to like stuff people into those roles just because you want to fill a quota. Like that's always the thing people are afraid of doing, especially because like esports and like their particular game talents are so niche already. Sometimes like it's a little even more seemingly forceful when you do get somebody from each different like diversity higher group. And
Bro, it's so funny. Like when you see companies like actively being like, oh, we need like this person to do this thing because they represent this like culture or whatever, and you're like, but are they good at it? Like you can't discriminate against people. And of course people that are less fortunate or groups that tend to be marginalized, you want to give them more opportunities if they're marginalized. But it doesn't mean that they should always do it, because they should still be able to do what you're asking for. And like I think a lot of companies and organizations have a tendency to just be like, we need the token this person, instead of saying, is this person good at their job? Because that's the main thing. Like you need someone to fill that role, and then you don't want to pick someone obviously because of their race or because of any other reason. You just want to pick them if they fit that role, and then make sure it's fair. But there is a lot of like tokening and a lot of that for women, I feel like, as well, being like, oh, we're diverse, but like
it's almost offensive in a way. Like they think, oh, women will just be satisfied with a less quality product just because we see, like, it's nice of course to see someone like skilled from like similar background like being represented. Seeing someone with a background but like someone who's not really qualified to be, it's kind of like offensive to us. Like we don't care, like they think we don't care if the product is bad, but like girlies know when other girlies kind of don't do too well. So it's like
when you choose a man over a woman even though the woman has clearly better work or has clearly better skills in this, but you just choose the man instead. It's, or like the pay thing as well, like when men get paid more or stuff like that. It's all just kind of stupid, and that's where I think the line should definitely be. And it's really interesting, especially in Asian cultures, because there are very clear kind of gender roles, I think more so than NA. And so seeing how the esports organizations kind of treat women, of course we have like a lot of conversations about women in NA, and especially on professional teams, and how they do that there is also really interesting. I remember talking to some people about women's leagues being created in Korea and how that hasn't really been happening too much. And it was a really interesting conversation, because it was like a lot of other countries have women like Valorant teams or league teams or stuff like that. They have, because Riot gives them their own competition, but Korea has kind of been a little like,
oh my god,
The side.
the sexism and like anti-feminism in Korea is still so much. I think one of the most out of all the Asian countries. I think like just the entitlement of netizens, it's crazy. Like, did you guys see the controversy about the emote?
Yes.
No,
league,
but
like,
that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I don't really want to know.
It's a whole
I'll
thing.
learn
I don't
later.
know if it's the best place to talk about here, but like the whole conversation around that was like in my Korean culture class at Yonsei, like we went over how like after one big dramatic event, in this case it was like this radical feminist group in the past that was definitely take steps too far to push their agendas of like more so like just push down any man you see kind of
Yeah, and it
thinking.
becomes more harmful than uplifting.
Yeah. So because that happened, like anything that was associated with them, in this case like this symbol which was their logo, like people would point it out in like frames of videos with like K-pop idols, like, oh, they did this, they're like part,
Oh
of,
my God.
part of the group, oh my god, like
Yeah, that becomes really difficult.
yeah. So that's still like the trend of things, that's still like a common thing people do, because I guess the people who do engage in that behavior are like a big part of the market for these games companies. Still, they're afraid to like really take a stand against them.
Yeah, it's a really complicated, difficult topic, and
Yeah.
of course we're coming from like Western perspectives, so our outlook on it is very like biased on kind of just why.
Yeah.
But there's so many reasons why things have led up to that point, and there's so many reasons why that society has gotten there and treats feminism in that kind of way, or like all that stuff, and not like NA has really made that much progress, to be honest. But yeah, it was also interesting in Japan to go and like experience the different culture and the ways of gender roles in that society and how women are respected as we face those issues today. Final thoughts?
I guess to that point, like how you said, the West is still kind of working on it. I think we are working towards like bringing more analysts, casting talent into things. Like I love Emily Rand, by the way, for the LCS, League of Legends. She's the best, and like hosting roles were always like occupied by women for the most part. Translating roles too,
Yeah.
like
And they're all beautiful.
yeah.
They're all
They
so
did
pretty.
an amazing job too.
Yeah, same with Valorant. I'm like, whoa.
Such talented people, like in the LCK, I think main producer right now is Ji-sun, who used to be a translator on the broadcast, but like since then moved up. The fear is though like that if they did transition like some people over to like casting or analyst roles in like the Asian countries, if that certain group of people will react poorly, and this is just like, this is the limit of things that women can do, which I hope isn't the case, because like you're missing out on so many great
Talented people.
right?
Yeah.
Do an amazing job.
No, exactly. Overall good time.
Yeah, super fun.
You
Very
really just, you were
educational,
just
honestly.
like shoved in there and then pulled right back out.
Yeah, I wish it was longer.
Mm.
Really cool. I guess I could experience more like esports culture in Korea, because a month is so short.
Yeah.
And you guys got to spend months. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I just hope for more esports anything in Japan, to be honest. I'm hoping for anything. I'll support
Zelda,
anything. I'll do
please.
anything. Like anything. Yay!
We're good.
We're good. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more content from UHE or WoUHE, please check out our socials and support us. We also have Pepe. Bye bye.
Do it for Pepe.
Bye.